great to have Congressman French Hill slowly walk part of it.
Thank you, Senator.
I know I speak for us all when I say we appreciate how you represent us and what you stand for, and that you stand for, especially at the moment, for keeping Nancy Pelosi from being Speaker of the House. I want to thank Dr. J for all the hard work. I look around and see the hard work and whoever's helped her. I know how tough it's been. I know just getting me to respond, how patient she's been. And before I begin here, let me say a word. Her hard work will not go unrewarded, but she should have had a much bigger crowd here today. And what we've got to learn as conservatives is to support each other. As I saw social media and things begin to whirl out of control, because there was an argument about whether you could be armed or not be armed here. Folks,
Thank you.
You've got to, when it comes time to pass laws and get things done and elect candidates, if we don't work together, if we let people go out and do hard work and then we just, if we let them do all that hard work and then we don't support them, then we can expect the same thing when we go to we've got to sometimes put our highs, some of our personal feelings behind these others and say, these are conservatives, let's go backward. Let's go help them. We need to follow Ronald Reagan's rule that if we agree on 90%, we need to get together and help each other. We're too much, we spend too much time criticizing each other. I've been asked today to speak on the relevance of the Constitution. I'm not known for being brief, but I may be the briefest speaker here today. When I think about the relevance of the Constitution, as a pastor's kid, the first question I think of when I think of relevance has always been, the relevance of the Scripture. And for me, that is such an easy subject. You go back, and I may step on some toes here, but you go back to Genesis and you look at the 7-day creation, and you don't have to agree with that. But in no other writing do you have anything that is scientifically in the right order until modern day. Even the way we say it, modern scientists, Darwinists say it happened in a much different way in a much longer period of time, but it's in exactly the right order. There's nothing else that's even close to the way that Genesis shows this. I can't remember which major prophet, I think it's Ezekiel, but it could be Isaiah. Some of you will know immediately, I know the pastor will know, is where it says that our sins are cast as far as the east is from the west. Isaiah. So, we were taught that in 1492 that lots of modern man and science thought that the world was flat. But we know back in Isaiah's day that God's people didn't think the world was flat. Because they didn't say as far as north is from south, because that has a limited number from the North Pole to the South Pole. The reason east and west was used is because it's infinite. That's how far your sins have been cast apart. And they knew that. And so, again, it's something that shows it to be very relative. Jan and I were in Canada in December. Went to a place called Drumheller, and I wanted to go there. We were actually there for an energy conference, but we drove miles to go to this museum, which has one of the largest collections of full dinosaur skeletons in the world. And I wanted to see them for myself. I'm a skeptic. I wanted to see not a bone or two. I wanted to see full skeletons. And this is an amazing place. And they put some back the way they found them, where a dinosaur is just crouched down, where it's just buried under this ton of sediment as it dies. And they've got plaques up everywhere, and I always laugh, smile at least, where it says, this happened in a regional flood. They always have to put the word regional in. And because there's no denying it was a flood. If these huge animals had not been buried immediately, under these overpowered by this unbelievable amounts of sediment, and there's millions of fossils in this one spot. And I think about it, I was just thinking last night about it being a regional flood, because they said there's only 2 other places like this in the world. One's in China, and one's in South America. And I said, well, they all had some pretty big regional floods. So, and when you study things, one of the things when I studied Lewis and Clark, one of the things that amazed me is that the Blackfoot Indians had a story of a flood. And then I've learned that every people have a story of a flood. So I think the Bible is relevant. And it was written much, much longer ago than the Constitution. The relevance of the Constitution. The Constitution of the United States is as relevant today as it was when it was ratified. A unique instrument that has helped create one of the freest, most prosperous peoples in the history of the world. It does a number of remarkable things, and it is remarkable not only that it does them, but how it does them, and in its brevity in doing them. The Constitution creates 3 branches of government, but with a unique idea for its day, and the only reason it's not unique today is because it's been copied, but with the unique idea for its day that none of them are supreme. The idea of moving floating parts of government at odds with each other are indeed unique, and one of the principles that keep it relevant. The legislature, executive, and judiciary branches are all subject to each other, but are all over each other in what we call the separation of powers. But not just in that is the Constitution remarkable. It also creates unique subdivisions called states that mimic the larger overall federal government, but is designed to be closer to and govern better for different geographic areas. And while Article 6, the Supremacy Clause, spells out that those subdivisions of states are subject to and inferior to the federal government, the 10th Amendment spells out that any power is not specifically granted to the federal government belong to the states.
And to the people.
So in other words, if it is not spelled out in the Constitution as a federal power, in those things the federal government is inferior to the states, and if you read the 10th Amendment, and even to the people themselves.